Mac, few things were cited more often by Republicans in the impeachment hearings than the so-called Steele dossier. In fact, the dossier, its author Christopher Steele, and the company that hired him, Fusion GPS, were mentioned 32 times by House Republicans. The dossier said Russia had dirt on Mr. Trump that could be used to blackmail him. The Clinton campaign paid Fusion GPS, and Republicans have argued the salacious dossier, or memos, if you will, is evidence that Russia was working with Democrats to smear Mr. Trump. Well, now the two men who created Fusion GPS have written a book, Crime in Progress Inside the Steele Dossier and the Fusion GPS Investigation of Donald Trump. And Glenn Simpson and Peter Frisch, the founders of the company, join me now. Gentlemen.
Good morning.
Welcome to Meet the Press.
Nice to be with you.
Peter, why did you feel the need to write this book? And I say this because it also means revealing a lot of secrets.
Right. Well, thanks for having us on. You know, we wrote the book to tell the real story of the Steele dossier, which is arguably now, I think you'd agree, one of the most important documents in recent political history. You know, it's important to remember we started this work on Donald Trump in the fall of 2015, looking for Republicans to look at the business dealings of Donald Trump and his business record.
You know, Republican donor and another Republican organization that was looking for background information for what? Reporting, opposition research?
That's correct.
Okay.
I mean, they were looking for, look, they were trying to stress test his suitability for president. I don't know if they were pro-Trump, anti-Trump. You know, that's to be decided. But, you know,
it started out as an ordinary business investigation. It wasn't really about Russia. As time went on and we realized that he had branched out his business empire around the world, we began looking at other countries. It wasn't just Russia. This is all recounted in great detail in the book.
Right.
It was a fairly typical investigation for the first 7 months or so, but it eventually did lead us to Russia. But it doesn't make logical sense for it to be a Democratic conspiracy if the first half of the investigation was paid for by Republicans.
Let me ask this about the Steele dossier. Some of the larger findings, some could argue, have been proven true. Trump is vulnerable to Russian blackmail was one of the allegations. There was a well-developed conspiracy of cooperation between the Trump campaign and Russia. Trump's team knew and approved of Russia's plans to provide emails to WikiLeaks. But none of those three allegations have been proven. You still stand by them?
Well, I mean, first it's important to remember who Christopher Steele is. He's a former British intelligence officer who rose to run MI6's Russia desk. This is one of the most capable and one of the most knowledgeable experts on Russia in the world today. And he spent a lot of time going through the dossier to sort out information from disinformation, credible facts from non-credible facts.
Well, let me ask this, though. You guys, and Glenn, you know, one of the odder coincidences is the Russian lawyer, Veselnitskaya, I hope I pronounced her name correctly. Veselnitskaya, who you were working with.
Right.
Saw her on the same day as the infamous Trump Tower meeting. You claim in the book you did not know it at the time. But you even write in the book that, now you're starting to wonder, were you sort of drawn in and worked in a way? So if you might have been drawn in and worked in a way, how do you know Christopher Steele wasn't?
Because Chris is a true pro at this. I'm an ex-journalist. He spent his whole life in this area. This is his single focus of expertise is Russian counterintelligence and Russian disinformation. So that's we talk about that at length in the book. We also talk in the book very candidly about, you know, let's be honest. We have to. There are certain things we wonder about.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to know more.
Like what?
Well, I mean, it's important to remember, by the way, that the past is prologue, right? We're sitting here today at the end of 2019. Does anyone doubt that Donald Trump would be capable of inciting a foreign or working with a foreign government to affect the political process here in this country? It's exactly what the House is looking at right now.
Let me get you to respond to Fiona Hill. She called it. Most people may know what was said, but here's what she said.
Dr. Hill, during your deposition, I asked you, was Christopher Steele's dossier a rabbit hole? Do you remember the answer you gave to that
Yes,
question?
I thought it was a rabbit hole.
Yeah, and you also said a couple pages later in the deposition, or in the transcript that I have here of your deposition, that you thought he got played. Is that fair?
That is fair, yes.
Fiona Hill's an expert.
She is, actually. She's not of the same exact area of expertise as Chris. She's not a disinformation specialist.
Okay.
And so she is a Russia specialist in general. She's entitled to her opinion. I know she knows Chris and has worked with him for a long time. So I'm not sure that is very well understood in that one remark.
I mean, I was puzzled by her comment because I don't really know what a rabbit hole means in that context. I will say, though, that you can't actually catch rabbits without going down some rabbit holes. So you need to actually follow leads where they take you, and we have full confidence in Chris's ability to do exactly that.
And her broader statements about what the Russians are doing, not just in our country but around the world, match up exactly with our work.
One of the things that I think people may not realize is you're still actively doing an investigation of Donald Trump. Explain what it is.
It's actually not an investigation of Donald Trump. What we're doing is investigating Russia's efforts to affect and disrupt Western democracies. So that's France, that's Britain, that's Hungary, that's any number of countries.
And that's
who's paying you to do
it's a nonprofit.
Oh. Is this Rob Reiner thing that he's a part of an independent, that whole consortium group?
It's called the Democracy Integrity Project,
Okay.
and I don't know what his connection to it is.
Gotcha.
If he has one.
It's run by Daniel Jones, which is all obviously public record. He is the former staffer who wrote the intelligence report on the CIA torture program for Senator Feinstein.
And what is going to happen to these findings? Is it going to be made public? Do you turn it over to law enforcement? Are you giving it to a political campaign?
That's for the nonprofit to decide. So it depends on what the information is. But we have tried, I mean, the charter is public education. So in one form or another, we are attempting to educate the public about Russia's attempts to undermine Western democracies, not just in the United States.
Before I go, what kind of toll has this taken on you guys personally? I would assume quite a bit. You've been targeted personally, harassed personally online. Talk about it.
It was really unpleasant for a long time. We were forced by various covenants we had with our clients to remain silent about our role. And that was hard to take when you have, on a daily basis, Republicans pushing lies about you, much as they're doing about whistleblowers today and other patriots who are actually standing up for democracy. It's really, really unhappy. And we had some legal bills.
You had Rudy Giuliani attacking you this week, making claims, and you confronted him.
That's right. I wanted to put him on notice that we're just not going to let him deliberately lie about us. Let's be clear. He's not confused. He's deliberately lying. We're going to respond when people deliberately lie about us, especially if it's the President of the United States' lawyer.
Peter Frisch, Glenn Simpson, the book, it is a fascinating read. No matter what you think of the Steele dossier, if you talk about it, you should read this book and then start talking about it again. Hello from Washington, I'm Chuck Todd, and thanks for checking out the Meet the Press channel on YouTube. Click on the button down here to subscribe and click over here to watch the latest interviews, highlights, and other digital exclusives.